Oh God, what shenanigans am I up to today? Well, this Acer that I thought was done, but once they gave me their PIN, I logged in and found out it wasn't. Yeah, we fixed the hinges. They were too tight, and they ripped all the mounts out, and the mounts are fixed and all that. We actually ended up having to buy, and I may have already made a video about this, the donor unit for the plastics. So all the plastics on this are new, and the motherboard and whatnot were transferred over. Well, guess what? I go in, and this little Wi-Fi right here isn't showing up. There's no connectivity, but it's worse than that. You see that little, well, it's half of one, but the Ethernet here, yeah, that wasn't showing up either. Now, why would the Wi-Fi card and the built-in Ethernet both not be showing up? It's a very interesting question. The rest of the computer worked fine. So here's what happened. Long story short, this card right here, this is not the original card that came with this computer. This card's fine. However, this card that came with the machine is not fine. And you notice that flap? Yeah. So I just swapped them out, and both of these started working. Ethernet and Wi-Fi started working immediately when I switched out the Wi-Fi card. See, the Wi-Fi card probably goes through the same PCI Express bridge as the built-in Ethernet. So the Wi-Fi card was actually causing everything that was connected to it directly, connected back to the same PCI whatever, to not work. Now, this card, there's no visual way to know that it's bad. I mean, it just, you swap it out with a good one and everything starts working. It's kind of obvious, right? Except guess what happened? So you know how this tab was up whenever I first picked up the card? I've never seen this before, but yeah, so surprise! That wireless chipset has shorted out. Look at that burn. It melted the label, it charred the label. This is all really gross. This thing is shorted out, so it was shorting out the socket. That's why the other stuff isn't working. It effectively was causing something downstream to fail-safe and shut down so that the rest of the computer wouldn't also fry. Yeah, that's brutal. Anyway, this bad boy is getting put back together and going straight back to the customer tomorrow. This is going to be awesome. Here we go again, damn it. So this computer would not get this far. In fact, all you get was the spinning dots. It would take you to the login screen, you'd key in the PIN, and you'd get the username of spinning dots forever. And at some point the username went away, but the spinning dots stayed up forever. Literally, this thing has been sitting here for 12 hours just on a black screen with spinning dots. And the culprit is right there. Do you see that? Yeah, Norton 360. That's what it is. But it may not have been Norton 360. What actually happened is I went in here and I found out that they had both Norton and the McAfee that came with this Lenovo, I assume. And so they have Norton, they had McAfee, and I went into the recovery environment and I found that under their services, they had services for both. So I had to go through services and delete all the Norton and McAfee services. But see, you can't just do that or you'll end up with an unbootable computer. You also have to go to control, oh, shut up, and then class there, and then run a search for filters. And you have to find, you can use F3 to repeat the search, you have to find every single lower and upper filter that has, for example, Norton's stuff now starts with NLL. McAfee often starts with MFE. But you have to go through all these filters just to find it. And delete just those filters from the filter list. And it booted. And signed in. How annoying. For most of you, by now, it is no secret that I have problems with laptop hinge mounts. I also apparently have problems with actually closing up the stupid snappy seals on the ends. But this one, this particular Toshiba, it ripped out the hinge mounts, but also the little plastic discs that go inside here that the screws grab on. I don't know if there's any way that I could show you. Not really. But there's a plastic ring that the screw grabs on, much like these washers, and it's molded into this plastic. So the reason this side looks the way it does is I was able to epoxy all of these anchors back in, but I had to get long screws and washers, and this is why it's handy to keep, especially like these are salvages from older laptops that are really thick. I have all of these longer screws that are the same threads as these newer computers. I say newer, but this thing's like 11 years old. But I have a much longer screw in this hole than what I originally pulled out of it. So there's the original and one that's actually a little too long for comparison. Let me see if I can grab one real fast that's more of a reasonable size. There you go. So yeah, these are the two screws in question, and what I did was to repair the bottom, because this corner, it actually will rip open right here at this seam, and eventually it's going to cause those mounts to give way. Plastic's going to crack. It's going to be bad. So I took a long screw, long enough that the head is still a little bit up there, but it's long enough to reach down there, but put this washer underneath it to make the head effectively very large. So this enlarged head combination, as provided by the washer, replaces the busted plastic that I can't get to epoxy back. The plastic's just shattered. There's nothing to be done. But because this is here now, even though I had to loosen the hinges for obvious reasons, they were tightening up over time, causing this damage, by getting these washered screws gently tightened in place, I'm actually going to tighten them a little tiny bit more, it solves the fundamental problem where this hinge area wants to move around and eventually break. Also, you're probably wondering what that one is doing. That's the keystone security hole. Because it was moving around, not just the seam wasn't just separating here, but I could actually see the hinge moving up inside here. So I kind of found this screw that fits in this keystone hole and cuts its own threads to some extent, so it's tight, and shoved it in there. The thing's actually like that long, and it won't go all the way in. So I had no choice but to put it in most of the way, but that keeps the hinge attached to the top regardless of the mounts. Then these keep the whole assembly here attached to the bottom. So when it's all said and done, and I take this computer and I open it up, there's no flexing, none of that nonsense. That is solid. As solid as a 2014 relatively cheap Toshiba is ever going to be. So that is today's wacky doodle hinge repair. Now I'm going to put Windows 10 on it and send them on their way.